you want to look at it. The fact that such a large guardian has not been discovered until now means that it is very likely that this guardian was created together with the temple. Raelsa orders the guardian to reveal his mission to the direct lineage of the Adanka family and to show respect. But to no avail, it doesn't work properly because the thing is too old. Raelsa asks Ravan to take Vinchin, and they walk away. Raelsa uses her technique, Baladian swordsmanship, 7th chapter, then uses an ability to freeze the guardian until finally cutting him. That's the level of a 7th star. But it's not over yet, and Vinchin realizes this. He uses his last strength to cut in that direction with his sword. It was because there was a small guardian right there. No, in fact, that was the real form of the guardian from before. However, Vinchin didn't manage to hit it, and now it's heading towards Ravan and Vinchin. Raelsa uses another of her techniques to move quickly in the direction of both of them and finally cut the guardian. Raelsa was careless at first, which caused her to miss the presence of the guardian's true form. Probably because of how old that structure is. However, Vinchin managed to notice and warned her. Moments later, they realized that what the guardian was guarding was just that. Inside that box was a dead dragon bone, a dragon skeleton. It looks like a relic left by the founder Arslan. A dragon skeleton is a super rare magical ingredient. It is a treasure whose value cannot be measured. It seems that was the reason why Arslan made a rite of passage. Raelsa gives the skeleton to Vinchin, since of all the Adanka who passed through, he was the one who found it. Vinchin mentions that such loot would be family possession through presbytery. Raelsa would be in trouble if anyone found out, but she clarifies that it is a problem she can deal with. Having said this, Vinchin gets up and cuts the skeleton in two. He decides to be Raelsa's accomplice, as he would have got nothing if it wasn't for her. Raelsa goes to see Khan, who was at the tomb of the Adanka patriarchs. She informs him that Vinchin's ritual of passage has been completed. She tells him that what she saw was very great. Raelsa tells him that Ravan was influenced by Vinchin and risked his own life to receive the Crimson Demon's attack, while Vinchin managed to subdue the demon. Khan is disappointed, as Vinchin was supposed to fight alone. But Raelsa also tells him that Vinchin defeated another Crimson Demon on his own, and also discovered the dragon skeleton left behind by the founder Arslan. That's the half that Vinchin shared with her. Khan tells Raelsa to break the dragon skeleton, a direct order. She stops. Raelsa uses North Wind, but despite this, she fails to break it. Khan tells her it's because you have to be a first-class swordsman to break a dragon skeleton. But let's remember that Vinchin broke it before with no problem. Khan is sure that soon it will be his turn to die, as Vinchin has a special power. Khan asks Raelsa to look after Vinchin. Vinchin returns home. Wilson was worried, but Seri tells him that Vinchin must rest because of the after effects of the demon subjugation. Wilson asks Vinchin if he really has to go to the Crimson Fortress, but of course he must. He is afraid of this place because the Crimson Fortress has terrifying monsters and even more terrifying martial artists. Vinchin keeps noticing the mana flowing from Seri's body and tells Julian, who never noticed this. Vinchin saw a mana flow similar to one from 500 years ago, then asks Seri what her surname is. She belongs to the ruined Hisley family. It is just as Vinchin suspected. She has a magical body. The Hisley family is a family that studied mana and the body. They are also the ones who discovered the heavenly exoskeleton. The Hisleys have a technique called magic body, similar to the heavenly exoskeleton. It is a technique that can introduce mana into the body. This means that if the magic body remains, it can prevent the heavenly exoskeleton from collapsing. Vinchin asks Seri if she knows anything more about the Hisley family, about any elders in the family, but she comments that her grandmother passed away, and the only Hisley she knew was her. Julian wonders how a family was ruined by such a technique. Vinchin answers that it could be a Samian family thing, which makes sense. If someone tried to hide the existence of the heavenly exoskeleton, they have to silence those who discovered it. Seri remembers something else. There was another person. Vinchin's mother, Sarvana, was also a Hisley. Even Julian is the first time he hears it, but it's because mentioning Sarvana's name was forbidden. This because Khan always seemed sad when that name was mentioned. Wilson mentions that they are there because of Sarvana, especially Raelsa, who was at her lowest when Sarvana found her. Sarvana was an amazing person. Raelsa enters the room to report that Ravan is leaving. He mentions that they already have the Crimson Demon, and he can't stay there forever. But Vinchin asks Ravan for another favor, to look into the history of the Hisley family 500 years ago. It seems to have been tampered with by someone, but maybe the collateral lines weren't touched, something like the love book they encountered earlier. That said, it's a deal. They both say goodbye and hope to see each other soon. Ravan promises to become stronger by the time they meet again. Vincent asks Railsa if she is kind to him as a way of repaying Sarvana. She says yes. Then Vincent asks her for a favor, not as Sarvana's son, but as Vincent Adinka. Until he enters the Crimson Fortress, Vincent wants Railsa to train him. After some thought, Railsa agrees, but warns Vincent that she will not go easy on him. The training between the two begins. Vincent can learn a trait without imagery, but for that he needs a mana circuit with a trait. Railsa will not use the weapon she used against the Guardian, the Black Moon. She tells Vincent that he will face that sword when he is worthy. He has 5 months until the Crimson Fortress. If he manages to hurt Railsa at least once, she will grant him the trait he needs. Vincent is afraid of hurting Railsa like he did Ravan, but she is nothing like him. Railsa moves quickly towards Vincent, who only narrowly defends himself. Railsa knows the power of the sword path very well. That's why she won't give Vincent a chance to use it. The look in Railsa's eyes was that of a person who could kill someone. Railsa already knows that Vincent is a friend of the priest Dulin, so if they need help, they will go to him. 1 week later, the training continues. Railsa still has the advantage over Vincent, however. He doesn't give more than 2 attacks, as that would be too much for him, so they will stop there. Railsa has noticed a lot of improvement in Vincent, but the sword he is using breaks again. She has lost count of how many times she has changed swords in the last few days, so she goes to complain to the blacksmith. Railsa tells the blacksmith, whose name is Hansen, that since the last time they met, it doesn't seem that the title of master is the only thing he has lost. She warns him that it would be a problem if he supplies rubbish in Adinka's armory. Railsa shows all the broken swords to Hansen. He finds it strange. He even asks her if she has fought with some kind of demon with sharp claws or against some 9-star warrior, or with some master of the sword, as it has not been the case. She answers that she has only been training with Vincent. Railsa, accompanied by Hansen, goes to see Vincent. This because she wants to know why Vincent has the Crimson Lotus. Hansen was the one who forged that weapon. Julian recognizes him. He is a famous blacksmith. Besides being an old friend of Khan and a master who used to belong to Adinka. Yes, he used to be a master, but not now. Hansen has been making high-quality cereal products for decades without making a sword. The blacksmith was ignored because he was blinded by money. That's why he lost his honor and is not positioned in Adinka. Vincent acknowledges that Hansen is incredible, as many people were able to protect themselves thanks to him. Hansen prioritized other people over his own honor. Vincent presents himself to him in a respectful way, which makes Hansen happy. Vincent tells Hansen that he made the right decision by taking the path he chose. Immediately Hansen remembers that Khan once told him the same thing. He begins to believe that this kind of attitude runs in his family. Hansen admits that he thought he was the ugly Vincent, but now knows that these were just rumors. Hansen asks him for the Crimson Lotus to keep an eye on the condition of the sword. Having used this sword for training, Hansen is surprised because the blade is not damaged at all. It is as if it is not a sword, but the strength of a man. Hansen asks Vincent what kind of swordsmanship he uses. Vincent refuses. Julian also, as Vincent has used both charges of the swordsmanship skill today. Vincent is aware of that, but it's not every day you meet a master, so he doesn't want to miss the opportunity. Sari shows up and tells Hansen that he should go to sleep. They know each other because Hansen has been sponsoring children in need, and Sari was one of them. They are like father and daughter. That said, Vincent tells Hansen that he will see him at the workshop tomorrow. Hansen says goodbye. Vincent can now see where Sari's warm heart comes from. The next morning, as promised, Vincent uses the Crimson Lotus in front of Hansen. Hansen gets a strange sword. It is like the legend of a hero and the Demon King. Now he can see that it is not for nothing that Vincent was given the Crimson Lotus. Hansen mentions that he is interested in Vincent, almost enough to want to make him a sword. However, one thing is missing. Hansen has had a sword in mind for a long time, but it needs rare materials, so Vincent will try to get it. It is a precious mineral that cannot be obtained even for a fee. It is called Mastodon Horn. Both Vincent and Julian see each other's faces because they already have one. Can Hansen really make a sword out of it? Hansen is surprised that Vincent has such a thing. Vincent asks him to keep quiet, as it is something only Khan and Railsa know. Hansen will now make him a sword, but Vincent asks out of curiosity if it is possible to add the horn to Crimson Lotus instead of making a completely new sword, as that blade symbolizes the beginning of Khan's career. Besides, Crimson Lotus is amazing, and Vincent likes it a lot. That said, Hansen agrees to Vincent's request and will add the horn to Crimson Lotus within 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, they go to see Hansen and find that the workshop is on fire. Vincent asks Sari to control herself for her to be surprised like this. Something unusual must have happened in the smithy. Vincent decides to go find Hansen on his own. His sword can cut through anything. He will cut the fire and the door at once. Even though Julian tells him it's reckless, Vincent does it anyway. As he enters, Julian visualizes Hansen unconscious. Julian also realizes that there is Crimson Lotus there. Everything indicated that the mana was overflowing. The dragon skeleton was much stronger than Hansen expected, but they must take care of getting him to safety first. But soon after, Vincent realizes that the exit is blocked. Julian asks Vincent if he knows any defensive technique, because no matter if it is the dragon skeleton, he won't be able to keep the flames forever. Vincent has something, a sword technique meant only for defense. He is Vincent Adinka, but he was also Davin Samian. Vincent uses Samian Swordsmanship Chapter 1, Breaker. The smooth sword breaks steel. The quality of his mana depends on his will. Slowly, he strikes the flow of flames approaching him with an infinitely silent sword. Julian was surprised to witness the Samian swordsmanship, but he still does not know Vincent's true identity. After a while, the flames finally die down. Hansen regains consciousness and realizes that Vincent used the Samian swordsmanship. If Hansen was able to recognize the skill, Vincent supposes it is not entirely forgotten. But best of all, the sword is complete. Hansen tells him that he must hold it, but he must do something with the fire. As he touches the sword, Vincent feels the sensation of the blade resonating with him. It is a great sword. Next, Julian notices something odd. If this was all arranged by the Patriarch Arslan, wouldn't he know that the dragon skeleton would behave this way? Had it been him, he would have left some precautions. Maybe the dragon bone was left to practice before the next dragon skeleton. Seeing this, Vincent asks Hansen to make him a new sword. He is sure that since he has made one, the next one will be even better, although Hansen mentions that it will take some time, as he has to clean up the whole mess. Besides, he has no dragon skeletons anymore, and he doesn't think he will be alive for the next time there is one. But what Hansen doesn't know is that there is actually another one, the piece that Raelsa had. Hansen's mouth drops open at the sight of another dragon bone, but Raelsa tells him to shut up. Only Khan knows about that. Hansen doesn't know how long it will take, but he will make a perfect sword. Vincent apologizes to Raelsa, as that piece of bone was originally meant for her. But it doesn't matter, because she already received full payment for the dragon skeleton 14 years ago, when an outstanding warrior was born. Vincent tells Raelsa that she will be more than satisfied, as with the help of the new sword, she will learn all her moves and defeat her, but Raelsa doesn't back down a single step. The training between Vincent and Raelsa continues. Even with upgraded Crimson Lotus, Vincent is not being able to stand up to Raelsa, though at least he manages to parry the attacks, even though she is using her power at level 4. Besides, Crimson Lotus is still intact. Vincent strikes back and Raelsa narrowly dodges. The flow and power of the sword is different from before. The sword is unable to break. Thanks to the Dwarf King's trait, Crimson Lotus absorbs all attacks, a sword that absorbs the trait of the users. This is the new power of Crimson Lotus. Raelsa tells him that Crimson Lotus has become more powerful. Given that, Raelsa will go a little more serious. She disappears and moves quickly around Vincent, who decides not to get carried away by the speed and chooses to feel the mana she uses to move. She attacks, but to the wrong place. However, she manages to hold Raelsa's sword using only her hands. She is surprised, as Vincent has been able to detect her movements in a month. Vincent uses double sword strike. Raelsa received no damage. However, she lost her sword, although Vincent gives it back to her, as he doesn't want to win in such a dirty way. She tells him that this was an act of arrogance, as not all martial artists and monsters will be gentle with him. Opponents who are stronger than Vincent will not show any sympathy. She makes it clear to him that he must remember that. This while she increased her aura. Raelsa prepares to attack, but as she does so, she collapses and Vincent holds her up, as well as wounding her a little on the forehead. There are 4 months left before going to the Crimson Fortress. Raelsa asks Vincent how he did it. He replies that even with double sword strike, it would have been impossible to hit her. However, he cut through the mana around her. This to block her trait. She didn't even know this was possible. So Vincent ends up surpassing all expectations. As he won, Raelsa has to keep her promise. She has to tell him about her blessing, the flow of mana from the Galaxy Wanderer. Later, Vincent is meditating. Raelsa tells Vincent that when he lets the mana flow through the path, it will begin to manifest. Julian was a little afraid of what might happen, but moments later, he notices the presence of something. Meanwhile, in the Crimson Fortress, Dean Vargan Pagoda and Headmaster Herka Quebel were meeting. She notices that Vincent is among the next to enter the Crimson Fortress. Vargan still believes the rumors that Vincent is a loser, so he thinks he won't achieve anything in the Crimson Fortress, so before Vincent signs up, he wants to stop him at all costs. We return to Vincent meditating. Julian notices the presence of someone else. The Galactic Wanderer's blessing trait consists of only one step. After it was very cold, Julian realizes that the girl disappeared. The name of this trait comes from the fact that it has a mobility that leaves no trace even in the snow. It is called Frost Walk. Later, Julian tells Vincent that the Crimson Fortress is more of a real fortress than a training school. That place is located in the mountains bordering Samian. In the past, when the followers of the Archidemon invaded Samian, Arslan, like the heroes of that era, served as a defense there, and it was seen as a training school thereafter. Vincent thinks they might find something else left by Arslan, maybe another bone. Julian doesn't know if it's a skeleton, but there is also a legendary treasure there. It's called Heavenly Fruit. It is more effective than any other elixir. There are even rumors that one of them can raise the dead. There is also a heavenly fruit tree, a tree that produces thousands of such fruits. The Crimson Fortress is said to be a pot for the thousands of fruit trees in the past. Julian would not have believed such a legend, but looking at the situation now, he wonders if the next goal will be to obtain the heavenly fruit. With it, they will heal Vincent's body and escape death. Once they are enrolled in the Crimson Fortress, they will have 9 years left. But Vincent thinks it could be less. That said, they will discover the secrets of the heavenly fruit and obtain it. According to the information obtained by Vincent, he will have to fend for himself without the financial support of the family in the Crimson Fortress, this to avoid cheating with money. So they will have to get their own money, but it doesn't matter, because Julian invested in a place called the 6th Magic Tower. If the Adanka and Samian families are known for their swordsmanship, then the 6th Magic Tower is known for being an elite mage course. There you can sponsor research mages and get back money as a contribution. The mage Julian invested in, whose name is Varnelli Pagoda, has just become the co-owner of the tower. The bad part of it all is that the investment will turn to trash when Varnelli dies. But would someone like her die easy? Well, apparently yes. What bad luck. Later on, Varnelli's death is reported. They assume she died in an explosion during an investigation. But the reality is that she was murdered. Goodbye to Julian's money. Without the money, Vincent will starve to death in the fortress. Varnelli left all his possessions and research to his younger brother, Vargan Pagoda. Yes, this guy from before. He laments that despite being a pagoda, he never achieved anywhere near the potential that Varnelli had. That said, Vincent has to search for Vargan. The time remaining is 4 months. He must gather as much information as he can and become as strong as possible until then. 4 months later, in the mountains of the Crimson Fortress, Vincent was on his way together with Raelsa and Sari, but they reached a point where for safety, they must continue walking. Raelsa tells Vincent that if he follows that path, the director of the Crimson Fortress will come to guide him. Vincent does not know how to express gratitude to Raelsa. She asks him to take care of himself. Vargan informs the headmistress that Vincent will be arriving soon. She finds this annoying as it is not her style to be formal and guide people. Next, through this rock, they speak to Herka and tell her that recently, there have been monsters invading the local residences around the area. Herka will go, as after all it is her duty as headmistress to defend the residents of the fortress, but they tell her that since it is a weak monster, to send someone else. But Herka ignores this and leaves. As for Vincent, Vargan has no choice but to guide him. Vargan notices that Vincent was accompanied by Raelsa. He had heard that Vincent was a good-for-nothing, but he didn't expect him to be so useless to the point where he needs someone strong like Raelsa to look after him. One of the guards asks Vargan if they will lower the difficulty of the exam, but he replies that it will be the same as the previous years, after all. Vargan wants to eliminate Vincent before he has a chance to enter the fortress. That said, the first exam, the subjugation of the illusory monster, begins. Back with Vincent and the others, they can already see the Crimson Fortress. But suddenly, it starts to glow. Vincent already knew that the testing of the fortress had started. In these last 4 months he has become very strong. It was time to test the strength he got from training with Raelsa. Vincent is right in front of a monster, the strongest predator of the snowy mountain, the blue-eyed with tiger. Vincent tells Sari and Wilson that when he is out of sight, they must run as fast as they can to the Crimson Fortress. Vincent runs and catches the monster's attention. If it is the kind of soft blue-eyed tiger he knows, it will react to the fast movements of the target. And so it does. Vincent catches its attention. However, something doesn't feel right. Although it looks a bit like a white blue-eyed tiger, it doesn't look like one. It doesn't feel like a living monster. But that doesn't change the fact that he will defeat it anyway. When Vincent attacks him, another one appears. Vincent manages to dodge them by jumping. There are not 2, not 3, there are a lot more. There are 18 in total. Julian tells him that it will be impossible to defeat them all with just 2 hits of absolute sword slash, but Vincent still thinks the same. There is something strange about this situation. These monsters don't usually travel in packs. They are the strongest predator, so they don't need to. And even though they are carnivorous, they don't emit blood essence. Julian tells him that they must be illusions created with magic. And so it is, they are illusions created by Vargan, who wonders if Vincent already noticed, but despite that, nothing will change. That's high rank summoning illusory magic. There's a little difference between real tigers and those illusions. Besides, they are smarter if a human is controlling them. Vincent says they can hold out for a bit, as if they are tigers made of high-ranking magic. The user will run out of mana soon, but Julian tells him it's impossible, as they must be using an assembly element. That is a method of using multiple spells of the same type at the same time. Instead of using numerous spells, one is designated as its assembly element. It makes copies conveniently, reducing mana usage. This means that if they take over the designated one, all the others will disappear. Vincent could tell because a human controls the tigers. In those instances, a real monster would be in the front line, whereas if it is a human, it will try to protect the assembly element, the one that is up the hill and not moving. That is the assembly element. Vincent uses the trait he learned from Railsa to move quickly using Frost Walk, reaching the assembly element in an instant. Vargan doesn't want to let Vincent move any further. Vincent's Crimson Lotus, which has been strengthened with the dragon skeleton, absorbs his mana properties. Using Absolute Sword Slash combined with Galactic Wanderer's Blessing trait can allow him to easily finish off the opponent, making the rest of the tigers disappear just as he had premeditated. Vargan realizes something. Vincent didn't take down the illusion. What he did was disconnect the mana circuit. Vincent definitely has a deep understanding of magic. It looks like it's about time Vargan swallowed his words. Since Vargan's magic has been bent, he has no choice but to open the gates to receive Vincent. The fortress is usually a headquarters for martial artists. Is it common to find mages of that level? Julian replies no. All indications are that the research they did was correct. At the gates of the fortress, Sari and Wilson were waiting for Vincent. Varnella's younger brother, Vargan, is a mage who takes over the practical work of the fortress. Vargan and the others welcome Vincent, but ain't no way bro, they're giving out their hearts. Shinzu wo sasejo. Vincent finally meets Vargan. Julian mentions that they can't bring the family funds to the fortress, but there is a sponsorship system. A talented cadet can be sponsored by the fortress, so they will get the necessary points with that person and get back all the money they invested in the magic tower. Hopefully, there are quite a lot of people in the fortress. Children from various families live there, instructors, priests, soldiers. As a result of this, Vincent will have a group life in a dormitory, but it will not be uncomfortable for him. Vargan adds that living there will involve being a cadet of the fortress. All other identities will be discarded. Vincent will wear the same uniform as these girls, but it will be issued to him tomorrow. Vincent asks Vargan what level he is at now. Vargan replies that all cadets will take the promotion test twice a year, starting from level 9. The levels go from 9 to 1, and if Vincent passes the promotion test after level 1, he will be recognized as a true warrior and graduate from the fortress. Vincent knows he must graduate as soon as possible, for in 4.5 years he must find the heavenly fruit he seeks to prevent the death of that body. Vargan asks Vincent if he had aimed to hit the blue-eyed white tiger that was the center of his magic. Vincent nods. Then Vargan asks Vincent how he knows about magic when he comes from a family of martial artists. Julian says that since he was pitiful at martial arts, he has researched everything. Vincent replies that since knowledge is power, he doesn't think it's complicated to differentiate things that way. Vargan is surprised to see the confidence and talent Vincent has. He can't understand how he was called a good-for-nothing. Vincent has something to ask Vargan. He gets to the point. How do you get the miracle fruit? Vargan thinks this is just a legend, so he replies to Vincent that maybe the heavenly fruit chooses its own owner. Julian thoughtfully realizes that Vargan also considers the heavenly fruit to be a mere legend. All indications are that gaining information will be tricky. After a while, they finally arrive at the rank 9 dormitories. The servants, Sari and Wilson, will live on the first floor, while Vincent will reside on the 3rd floor. Then he hands Vincent the medal indicating that he is a rank 9 cadet. Vargan teaches Vincent the welcome greeting to the Crimson Fortress. Vincent arrives at his residence, where there were more people who were acting strange. He even thinks it is because he did something wrong. Then this guy calls him good for nothing. He is the rank 9 cadet, direct representative, 6th son of the Adenka family, Malone. Vincent has no idea who he is, but Julian makes it clear to him that this bastard is his older brother. He also makes it clear that this person is the one who is bothering him the most, even forcing him to eat rubbish. Vincent riches. Malone is a guy whose daily life is to bully the weak with force, and those actions affect the people in the room as well. Since Malone soils the Adenka's honor, he plans to scold him a bit. Julian agrees. Unexpectedly, he shakes his hand. Malone backs off a bit, saying they weren't that close as family. But this was all Vincent's plan to make fun of Malone, since even though he left town quite some time ago, he's still a guy who's rank 9. For no sense whatsoever, Malone beats up this guy named Sizen because he's supposed to educate the new guys. This guy is the worst. Vincent has a bitter memory. That guy reminds him a lot of Kajin. That's why moments later, he punches him in the face, leaving everyone with their mouths open. That makes Malone angry and wants to fight back. There is something that Vincent learned from that era, and that is that in that era they don't care about martial arts. So without any problem, Vincent manages to take Malone down. Then, he addresses everyone in the room and tells them that the only fear they are allowed as martial artists is respect, so they must overcome their fears as the only way to become a martial artist. Malone gets up again and very angrily now tries to attack Vincent with a sword. Vincent manages to dodge the attack. Julian tells him that if he does well in that situation, he can turn that into an opportunity. Meanwhile, in Ala, a village near the fortress, Herka manages to defeat the monsters that were stalking the inhabitants. They want to buy her a drink as a thank you, but she is at work, she can't do that. Still, it's not polite to refuse an invitation, so she accepts. Behind her is Vargan, who already realized that Herka is wasting her time and is angry. When they are drinking, Vargan tells Herka that Vincent managed to find the assembly element and destroyed it, but she has no idea what this means, as she is not a mage. In short, and to make it more understandable for her, Vincent knew about and how to take down something that even a rank 7 martial artist had never heard of. She is not surprised, as another direct descendant demolished the whole mountain or something. Vincent sounds a bit more cowardly to her. She then laughs at Vargan and tells him that he must be thrilled to have found someone more cowardly than himself. But they can't talk any further, because they have already been informed about the incident between Malone and Vincent. They require the presence of a mediator during a fight. This girl, called Brond, an instructor in the Class 9 dorm, apologizes to Vargan. Because in the first place, because it was a direct confrontation, she accepted the cadet's request. Both Vincent and Malone are subject to disciplinary action for causing a disturbance in the dormitory, but since there was a cadet's uniform, he'll let it slide that time. Then with the authority of the Crimson Fortress and the measure of confrontation, the two can compete, though Vargan hopes they do so with honor. Malone is frightened when he sees the Crimson Lotus. He even thinks it is a counterfeit product. He bets his right wrist that the sword is a fake. Vincent tells him that he will have to take responsibility for having uttered those words. Malone uses his trait, which is intimidation, instills fear in the opponent, but Vincent is right, a sword bearer should not fear another. He can ignore the effects of intimidation with spirit and determination. Malone thinks that the ability doesn't affect him because he is a bit far away. Then Malone attacks with his mana and sword. He thinks he hit Vincent, but Vincent was behind him and hit him. There he realizes that Vincent is able to use Frosty Walk. He is also able to increase his power with strong conviction. Finally, Vincent manages to defeat him. Everyone knew that Malone was a scumbag, yet the reason he held the position of cadet representative was because of the overwhelming strength he had among the 9th class. But Vincent shakes that position now. This girl, whose name is Selbera, wonders what they are all doing there. Next, she sees Malone lying on the floor. The boy next to her admires Vincent and wants to become like him. However, Selbera tells him that it is not over yet, as Malone's intimidation is a separately acquired characteristic. He has a very rare innate protection. Julian wanted Vincent to keep hitting Malone, but Malone notices something odd. Even though Malone's sword fell, Vargan still hasn't declared victory, and this is because shortly after, Malone gets up using electricity. It's the blessing of the lightning giant. Things seem to have gotten a little complicated for Vincent. Malone's attack damages Vincent's arm. Malone is using the microcurrent boost trait. Julian is confused, as Malone's trait was supposed to be the intimidate trait. Malone mentions that this ability is new, as he learned it after arriving at the fortress. Vincent asks him why he hid it for years. He replies that he wasn't hiding anything, it just annoyed him. With the coercion trait, no one his age could defeat him. He doesn't think it's necessary to go through the painful and hard training once the time comes. The fortress will have no choice but to let him graduate since he is a direct descendant. He, unlike other people, doesn't feel he has to work like a dog. Vincent tells him to stop talking nonsense, makes it clear that Malone's power is something a person works for his whole life and never achieves. He is not only shirking the responsibility of that power, but Malone also ignores and tramples on the efforts of others, as well as trampling on the reputation of the Adanka family name. Malone mocks him for having an injured arm. He tells him that he only has the right to say such things to him only if he defeats him. Next, Malone launches an attack on Vincent. Vincent gets serious and dodges. Malone had said earlier that Crimson Lotus was fake, right? Well, Vincent will take his right wrist just like he said. Of the 2 hits, Vincent has used one on the illusory monsters. He will end that fight using the power of the Dwarf King and Absolute Sword Slash, but that's something Malone won't allow. He starts throwing many attacks against Vincent, who tries to dodge everything. Vargan watched as Malone was drunk on his own mana. He's not controlling himself at all, he's destroying everything. Some debris is about to fall on Sari, but Vargan protects her. He then tells Braun to evacuate all the cadets, while he teleports Sari with his magic to safety. However, he notices that Sari's body is covered in mana. Malone continues to get out of control. Vincent recognizes that it is a very powerful trait, but he has a lot of openings. He needs to take advantage of one to go all center using Frost Walk. However, he makes a misstep because he can't hold the ability for long and ends up getting hit. Vincent is close to his limit. Vargan admits that it was his negligence that things ended up this way, as before the fight started, he should have placed the mana barrier that he will place now. This is not so good for Vincent, as the space to escape is reduced. He will not be able to avoid Malone's attacks. The fight is complicated. Vincent is losing strength and Frost Walk is on the edge. Julian tells Vincent that he can cut some more using Absolute Sword Slash. Vincent will trust Julian's strategy. Vincent climbs on the mana barrier using his last Frost Walk. Malone prepares to attack him, and when he does, he falls into Vincent's trap, which breaks the barrier and causes Malone's attack to come out of it, hitting the structures and causing a collapse, all the debris falling on him. Vincent tells Malone that a martial artist's oath is heavier than anything else. At this point, Vincent can't look like a liar, so he makes good on what he said and slashes Malone's right wrist. Vargan is surprised as the mana barrier he had prepared was at a completely different level. It was an airtight space made of various spells, but Vincent managed to cut it with a simple sword attack. Vargan gives Vincent as the winner. As Vincent ordered Wilson, he brought the priest. He is a 5th class priest. His name is Sheben. Sheben asks Vincent how he could have something as valuable as a level 2 priest's badge, but as he is a level 5 priest, he is in no position to question, then offers to heal Vincent's wounds. Malone laughs and thinks it was pre-planned, so he tells Vincent to tell the priest to heal his wounds. But I don't think that's going to be possible, because before we started fighting, Malone gave his word and staked his right hand as an official warrior, so if he heals his hand, it would ruin his honor, right? Julian is happy to have gained revenge, while Vincent wishes never to become his enemy. Malone has no choice but to put honor aside and beg for his hand to be cured. Vincent tells the priest to cure him. After healing his hand, Malone is warned that it is best to avoid strenuous exercise, as the healing is less than perfect. This boy wants to be like Vincent. He tells him that he will go far if he can overcome his fear. Malone thinks how arrogant Vincent is and that everyone will follow him immediately, like the frustrated coward that he is. Malone does not accept defeat and plans to attack treacherously, but Vargan stops him and tells him that the reason he ignored tyranny was because he was a commander. But to be a commander, you must be able to raise your sword. A week later, they go to see Vargan. Julian teaches Vincent to express condolences to Vargan's sister. He acknowledges that Vincent was an acquaintance of his sister, but he is 4 months late in expressing condolences. One day, Vincent will once again be the 7th son of the family, while Vargan is a former mercenary. Since Vincent knew his sister, Vargan asks him what his purpose is. Vincent tells him that he was a sponsor of Varnelli. At first, Vincent wanted to be paid back, but after he heard Vargan's story while investigating, he saw himself. Vargan was a child with no talent, oppressed by the rest. Having heard that, Vincent wanted to share his story. After Vargan left behind the family that abandoned him in the Spirit Tower, he lived as a mercenary, and after a long time he got a job in the Crimson Fortress. Vargan has no feelings for his family, nor for his sister, but Vincent says that if that is the case, why Vargan still doesn't leave the pagoda name. Everyone lost the respect they had for Malone, This makes him even angrier and his desire to take revenge on Vincent increases. Then an entity appears before him and asks him if he wants to kill Vincent. This thing offers him its help to do it. We pick up the conversation between Vargan and Vincent. The reason he doesn't give up the pagoda name is because this is a family of wizards who have always been in the tower from generation to generation. Being a mercenary, that could have been a hindrance. Vargan shushes Vincent by telling him he is just a brat who doesn't have any stars. He doesn't know the things Vargan had to go through, or how he felt about leaving the magic tower. Vargan mentions that if the Adanka and Samian families go to war, he would destroy the magic tower for ruining his life. Vincent was similar to him, but what he wanted in the end was not revenge, but acceptance and love. He tells Vargan that the reason he has not abandoned the pagoda name is because he still has an attachment to that family. Varnelli, unlike Vargan, was very talented and brilliant. Vargan put up with all the bullying he received because of the admiration he had for her, but at the same time, Varnelli's brilliance made him more miserable, as he was under a lot of pressure because they wanted him to be like her, which is why he eventually left his family behind. Vargan admits that he thought he could see through Vincent's intentions, but it was the other way around. He never expected to hear life advice from a brat. Thanks to this, Vargan can now be more honest with his feelings. Moments later, Vargan agrees to promote Vincent in the fortress, so he no longer has to worry. He practically has the investment money back. Julian mentions that with Vargan that makes 3, Vincent thinks Julian is treating him like some kind of con man. But no, everything he told them was sincere. Selbera and Sizen go to see Vincent and congratulate him on earning Vargan's promotion. Selbera introduces herself to Vincent as the representative secondary cadet. It's the first time they've met, practically, as the girls use the first floor. Vincent had never heard of a representative secondary cadet before, but Selbera is responsible for reporting everything to the instructors. Next, Vincent notices it, that feeling, although the level is not yet comparable. Selbera gives off the same feeling as her mother. And indeed, Selbera is able to see the opponent's power and hidden potential thanks to the trait she possesses. So she uses it to find out how Vincent managed to defeat Malone. There she realizes that Vincent has no imagery, and the crimson color it emits means that it is not possible for her to evaluate Vincent's hidden potential. Vincent is not very pleased that she wants to use her trait that way on him. Selbera wonders how she knew, since if it's the first time, even instructors can't sense it. Vincent asks them both what they are doing there. Selbera tells him that it is forbidden for cadets to roam alone at night. Sizen tells Vincent that it is dangerous for him to roam alone at night. They usually use the buddy system. Selbera annoys him by telling him that he may encounter Davin's evil spirit. Hearing this, Vincent asks Selbera for more details about the evil spirit he spoke of. Sizen mentions that after the Archidemon Davin lost to the Hero King, his spirit was dispersed all over the world, so there are still remnants on the loose who make contracts with martial artists and provide them with great strength. These remnants give people enough power to accomplish goals using their lives as collateral. So the Archidemon Davin really existed. Wasn't it a legend to frame him for everything? Selbera mentions that from time to time, people are reported to form contracts with Davin's remains, but she doesn't really believe in such things. An evil spirit from 500 years ago, there's no way such a thing exists, right? Well, that doesn't seem to be the case, because the entity that appeared in front of Malone was one of these remnants of the evil spirit, and it tells Malone to form a contract with it so that it can fulfill whatever it wants. Malone asks the entity if it is the evil spirit of Davin, but it refuses to answer, telling him that the important thing is that it can help Malone achieve his goal, to regain his position as king of the place. Vincent enters the room accompanied by Sizen. Everyone is asleep. Vincent notices that Malone is not there. Sizen is left to go back alone in the dark night. Soon after, he realizes that there is something stalking him, without a word. This thing cuts off Sizen's arm. This creature was aiming for Sizen's throat, and that creature is none other than Malone, who, consumed by hatred for Vincent, let this evil spirit consume him. Sizen immediately notices that Malone made a contract with an evil spirit. Malone freaks out when he sees Sizen pointing the sword at him. He is no longer afraid of Malone. However, right now he is no match for him. Malone is about to execute Sizen, but before he can harm him, he is saved by the instructor Brond. Seeing Malone's condition, she points out that he has abandoned the pride of a martial artist. Brond's attack did nothing to Malone, so she tells Sizen to sound the alarm. In the room, Vincent wonders why Malone hasn't returned. Moments later, he hears the alarm and everyone wakes up. On his way out, he meets Selbera, who still doesn't know what is happening. Then Vincent smells blood. Vincent tells Selbera to notify the dean about the situation using the crystal, as it is an emergency. Things don't look good. Vincent knows they will need help from someone higher up. Vincent asks everyone to join him outside. The alarm stops, so does the flow of mana. Was the battle over? They must hurry. Vincent asks Selbera if they have any defensive seals they can use. Vincent knows that the initial battle is over. The fact that they have not been contacted means that the opponent won. Selbera learns something, one of the 7 basic seals of Adenka, the triangular defensive seal. But at the vertices of the triangle must be a 5-star martial artist or higher. If this condition is not met, the seal will lose balance and collapse. Selbera tells her that if they meet the instructor Brond, they will be able to manifest the seal. When they leave, they find traces of much blood, and Instructor Brond badly wounded. Malone immediately attempts to attack Vincent, who manages to repel the attack. Vincent learns that the identity of the thing is his brother Malone. Selbera tells Vincent that the aura Malone gives off is the same aura that the martial artists, who were possessed by Davin's evil spirit, had. Vincent finds it impossible. Since he is there, if he had to fight Davin's spirit, would he be fighting himself? Malone begins to unleash his power, becoming stronger than before. Vincent asks everyone not to be afraid, as they are martial artists. He asks them not to be afraid and to grab the swords. Once again, Vincent managed to free himself from Malone's coercion. The 5-star martial artist Brond was easily defeated. Vincent is not sure he can handle the situation, so they need the help of the reinforcements that Selbera asked for. Until those reinforcements arrive, Vincent must resist, accompanied by a bunch of inexperienced rank 9 cadets. Vincent tells Selbera to let everyone know that they will manifest the triangular defensive seal together. They need a 5-star martial artist, yes, but that will be taken care of by Vincent. He will go in the center of the seal. Selbera tells him that this is impossible, as he is not a 5-star. If he does so, he will collapse as soon as the seal manifests. Vincent tells Selbera to assume her role and make the decision that will protect everyone. That said, she asks everyone to form the defensive triangular seal, and use Vincent as the center. Malone laughs because he thinks they will die trying. Maybe they will. But if Malone turns out to be blocked by the seal even after forming a contract with an evil spirit, that will be really humiliating for him. Julian tells Vincent that it won't work, they'd better run away. Vincent mentions that they could have run a long time ago, but if they had, everyone behind him would have died. With the cadets in formation, they begin to manifest the defensive triangle seal. Vincent feels as if his mana is exploding, but he must endure it. Malone laughs as Vincent is about to collapse as soon as the seal begins, then attacks. But the attack is blocked, this because Vincent stiffened the weight of the seal. Malone prepares to attack again, but fails to penetrate the defenses. Vincent watched in awe at the incredible strength with which Malone struck. Thanks to the evil spirit, the lightning giants has become even stronger. Malone continued to attack. The cadets watched as the Archidemon manifested itself before them. Vincent asks them not to be afraid. They must remember what he told them before. The only fear they are allowed to feel as martial artists is respect. They must not be afraid of an idiot who has abandoned his honor. Selbera noticed how Vincent was trying to boost the morale of everyone while at the same time managing to keep the weight of the seal. She wonders if he is really a 14-year-old boy. On Selbera's signal, the cadets will charge mana. After a count of 3, the seal seems to begin to take effect. They pull Malone back a little. The senior martial artists must arrive soon. They have to hold on a little longer. Vincent tells Malone that if he surrenders and admits his wrongdoings, he can avoid the worst-case scenario. The evil spirit incites Malone to kill everyone. This makes him stand up once again. He wants to see everyone die as they tremble in fear. Vincent noticed that Malone's mana became stronger. Moreover, he is preparing to unleash a great attack. Malone attacks again, causing the ground to shake. Selbera tells everyone to watch out for the rocks. Well, this one wasn't very careful. He didn't see it coming. Thanks to this, the defensive seal loses strength. Malone throws himself at Vincent with every intention of killing him. Vincent prepares to receive the attack. Fortunately, he doesn't make it through the defenses because Saizen crawled to form part of the triangle. Saizen has told Malone before he's not afraid of him. Malone gets even angrier. The cadets have to hold on a little longer. The seal is almost at its limit. Saizen won't be able to hold on much longer. Vincent notices something. He wasn't even going to stab him. Still, he's being able to see the path of the sword. A black sword path through Malone's right hand. However, waiting for reinforcements is the first priority. but the defensive seal is on edge. To slash or not to slash, Vincent was torn between the two options. Moments later, running out of options, he tells Selbera that the seal is about to break, so they must brace for impact. Vincent uses absolute sword slash, alternative form, chapter 2. Although he followed the path of the sword, he failed to stab him properly. He must try again. Malone turns around and prepares an attack on Vincent, who takes the blow full on. He was hit in the left hand, so he can't get a proper grip on the sword. But this is no time to back off. He tries to slash properly, but Malone holds his arm before he can strike. Malone hurts Vincent's arm, causing him to drop the sword. If this was Vincent's previous life, he would not have had a chance to do what he will do now. He holds the sword with his right hand and uses absolute sword slash once again to successfully slash Malone's arm. Vincent believes he defeated him, but this is not over yet. Despite losing an arm, Malone refuses to back down. However, the aura of the evil spirit is gone. Perhaps that unknown black sword path was a way to sever the connection between Malone and the evil spirit. Still, Malone wants to keep fighting and prepares to attack again. If he wants to stop him completely, Vincent needs to stab him one more time. But the worst happens, Vincent can't move. Vincent refuses to die without knowing what happened 500 years ago. When Malone was about to kill Vincent, he is trapped with ropes. Vargan was there, but he was not alone. Herka was also accompanying him. She mentions that this sealing magic to bind him completely together with his imagery is called Crystal Prison. The only downside is that it takes a while to set up, but any martial artist with mana can't escape. Malone was still determined to kill Vincent. Someone please shut this guy up. Thank you. The seal was completed and Malone was trapped in the Crystal Prison. Herka finally meets Vincent, as Vargan has told her a lot about him. Vincent's wound is so severe that he cannot even speak. Herka acknowledges that Vincent's mentality is extraordinary, as thanks to him, many people were saved, then tells Vincent that she and Vargan will take care of it, so he can rest. Vincent loses consciousness, then we see that he is inside a strange place with mirrors. There is also Julian, who complains to him for overstretching his body in this way. Herka goes to see Khan to tell him what has happened. She starts by telling him that it is not a fun thing to hear. There are 15 wounded among the rank 9 cadets, although no cadets were killed. One of the instructors was killed, Brond. Sizen managed to survive in battle against Malone. Khan tells Herka that they will go out of their way to show respect to Brond and her family. The same for the wounded. He tells Herka not to hesitate to sponsor them generously until they are fully recovered. Herka apologizes as he believes it was his fault. But Khan tells him that there are always many variables associated with those who make contracts with evil spirits. Herka's decision to stop him in one fell swoop after long preparation was not wrong. But how does Malone stay alive after becoming a contractor? As Khan understands it, contractors are provided with enormous strength in exchange for their lives, and once that power is exhausted, the person dies. Herka mentions that the mages dispatched from the fortress have analyzed it. There is no particular reason why it would have turned out this way, but according to the cadets who participated in the battle, Malone was released from possession after being stabbed by Vincent, and that arm he lost could not be reattached. Khan wonders if Vincent used that strange swordsmanship he used in the assembly of the true swords. Khan decides to take disciplinary action against Malone, since he crossed the boundaries of a martial artist by forming a contract with an evil spirit. He will be confined for the rest of his life, when honestly the best thing would be to kill him. But that's my opinion. Malone's imagery will be completely sealed and his every sinew will be severed so that he can never hold a sword again. The next thing is to give Vincent a reward, but he was taken to the main house after having his wounds treated, although he still hasn't opened his eyes for a few days. Vincent was in this dimension with Julian, who also doesn't know where they are. They were both sent there just after Vincent lost consciousness. But after looking around, Julian comes to the conclusion that they are inside Malone's memories. But why are they there? It may be related to that random swordsmanship Vincent used. Vincent has no idea what's going on, since that's something